a few things, and then I am going to, it's just about time. So make sure, actually, before I get started, everyone can hear me. I've got my assistant here, Mia, who's the co-host. She can let me know that she hears me, or Ansley, let me know that everything's working okay there before I get started. Great. Okay, so people can hear me. So I'm gonna get started. So again, if you have questions, you can throw them into the Q&A at any time, and then I'll see that as soon as I stop. So especially as I'm talking, something might come up for you, okay? So I'm going to get started. So let's start with my presentation here. So you are here in How Do I Know If I Have a Food Allergy Masterclass. And if I do, what do I do next? So a lot of people, if you already know me, you know that I work as a chef and I cook for people with dietary restrictions. And I get asked all the time about what foods they're eating and should they eat them and how they're feeling and stuff. So I decided to put all this together into a presentation and just do a class on it so I can get all of your questions together at once. So let's get started. So in this class, we're going to go over how to determine if your symptoms are being caused by food, and then the steps to figure out which food it might be. What's the difference between a food allergy, sensitivity, and intolerance? I know I've used the word allergy here because that's the most common word that gets used when it comes around food and foods that kind of aren't working for us. But there's a difference between allergy, sensitivity, and intolerance. And sometimes we just interchange the words. So I'm going to go over that as well. And if you do have a food sensitivity, what are the next steps to take? And also, one of the steps I'm going to talk about is an elimination diet. So I'm going to go over that and how you can use it if it can help you. So some of the reasons that you might be here in this class with me. Maybe you don't feel as good as you used to. Maybe something's going on and you're kind of wondering, where did this come from or what's causing it? Maybe you don't feel well after you eat. That's the most obvious kind of set of symptoms that might come up when there's a food sensitivity present. You eat and you don't feel well. So maybe this is one of the reasons that you're here. Maybe you're really low on energy and you have a hard time getting up in the morning, and no amount of coffee or whatever you might be taking, food, whatever, caffeine, isn't really helping. Certain foods or meals make you feel bloated and gassy, but you're not sure which ones. This can be really confusing and I hear this all the time, oh, I eat this meal and I feel fine after, but then sometimes when I eat the same thing, I don't feel well. So sometimes, isn't it great when we have a really nice and easy symptom like, oh, I'm super bloated, my stomach hurts. Okay, clearly I ate something that didn't agree with me. But sometimes it's a little confusing. And which food was it that caused it? Maybe you're taking a bunch of medications to lower some symptoms you're having, but then the origination of those symptoms is never quite going away. So you get in this terrible routine of having a headache, and so you take the aspirin, but then the headache always comes back if you're not, and then the aspirin just doesn't seem to be working. So what I like to do is look at, where is that headache coming from? Where is the symptom coming from that you're taking the medications for? And let's see if we can just figure out how to fix that, and then you don't need the medications anymore. So I'll tell you a little bit about my health story and how I got to where I am right now. 15 or so years ago, I was really, really sick for a really long time. And I would go to doctors and have blood tests, and I would complain, and they all said, nothing's wrong with you, your blood work looks fine. But I didn't feel fine. I was another 50 pounds heavier than I am now. I had daily headaches. And when I realized that my headaches hadn't stopped every day for 2 years, I knew something was wrong. I never went anywhere without a little bottle of Excedrin. And I felt like I had arthritis in all my joints. Like every single one of my joints hurt all the time. And the doctors kept saying, nothing's wrong with you. Go home, eat better, and exercise. Well, every time I would try and eat better and exercise, nothing changed. And then finally, a nutritionist diagnosed me with some food allergies. I was so sick, I was ready to change everything. So I radically changed my diet and immediately felt better. And it was through that process that I decided to go to culinary school to learn this new way of eating, because it seemed like that was going to be the way to keep myself healthy. Because whenever I would reintroduce certain foods back, it didn't work so well. So then I decided to do this for a living. Flash forward to today, I now have 12 years of experience cooking for just about every single diet out there. Every health concern, every dietary restriction. I've cooked for people undergoing multiple different kinds of treatments. So I have a lot of experience changing up recipes and adjusting food to people's needs. So do you have a food allergy or sensitivity, right? That's what you're here for. That's the question we want to try and answer. So here's a list of some symptoms that can come from a food allergy or sensitivity. Gas or bloating, feeling gassy, feeling bloated. Acne and breakouts. If you have a lot of acne, especially as an adult, or you have these random breakouts, that could be a sign. Maybe there's just an overall general decline of your health. Maybe things have just been slowly going downhill and you can't quite pinpoint when it all started, or maybe there's just a lot of these little things, so they don't all point to one thing wrong. Or there's new small symptoms popping up, a new little thing popping up, like you never used to have headaches and now you do. A runny nose. I know for myself, whenever I eat dairy, I have a runny nose for quite a few days. There's just that's the way my body reacts to it. So I know to expect that symptom after I've had a bunch of dairy. Or maybe you've got patchy red or inflamed skin. Something that I used to have was bright red cheeks, but it wasn't rosacea. And it's like we couldn't quite figure out what those bright red cheeks were from. And as soon as I changed my diet, they went away. Bowel changes. So I've been asked, can a food allergy cause constipation? Well, if you're usually a certain way, your bowel movements are usually a certain way, and then it suddenly changes, like from day to day, week to week, something's going on in your digestion. Something isn't working well for you when you're eating. And more. This is just the beginning of a list. The challenge when it comes to food allergies and sensitivities is that the symptom could be anything. And I don't mean that to sound kind of overwhelming, but what might be a symptom for me might not be the same symptoms for you. And they might not be obvious, like gas and bloating, or having to go to the bathroom and it not being a good experience. Like those are obvious symptoms, or getting a headache right after eating something. What I know how certain foods made me feel, and then for someone else, it might be a different symptom, but it's still the same food that's not working for us. And then to my last point here, it doesn't have to be an all-out allergy for you to not feel well. It doesn't have to be like a full-blown food allergy, like you're going to go to a doctor and get a diagnosis and I'm allergic to. You can still have foods that don't feel good and are causing some of your symptoms, and it's just a sensitivity or an intolerance. So I'm going to go kind of into the difference of those words. It could be that you don't have an allergy to gluten, So it means that your immune system isn't getting involved. When it's an allergy, it actually means your immune system is involved, versus sensitivity or intolerance just means like you have a hard time digesting that food. You don't have to have an allergy for you to not feel well when you eat certain foods. Okay, so it has more to do with, instead of your immune system getting involved, it's more just your digestive system is having a challenge with that food. So here are some ways to figure it out. So your questions are, how do I know if I have a food allergy or sensitivity? How do I know if maybe I could feel better if I just changed my diet? And what do I change in my diet? So one of them is, get curious and pay attention to how you feel after a meal. I said this once to one of my friends who he wanted to go on this crazy liquid diet. He wanted to do these juice cleanse, and I'm not calling juice cleanses crazy at all, because they really do work for some people. But he wanted to do something really super drastic because he wanted to lose weight and he was having some health issues. And I asked him, well, how do you feel after you eat a certain meal that we were talking about? And he's like, what do you mean, how do I feel after I eat? I've never thought about how I feel after I eat. Well, that's where I would say start. Get curious and pay attention. Because if you really want to change how you're feeling and you think food might be involved in it, it's going to take some of your attention to really pay attention to your body and to what it's telling you. So when you eat something, how do you feel afterwards? And that can be for about up to 2 hours. The most obvious symptoms will be within 2 hours after you eat. You could do a food journal. You could get, your favorite little booklet, a favorite notepad, and just start making notes and noting down how you feel after certain meals. And some people go, food journal is too hard, or I've tried to do it before for my nutritionist and I just never finish it. This can be as simple as you want it. You could have a simple journal and in the morning go, basic breakfast, the same breakfast I have every day. Or it would be great for the first couple of days, you actually make more notes. And this is what I ate. And then set a timer on your phone for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And then go back to your journal when that timer goes off and go, how do I feel? Am I hungry? Do I feel satiated? Is there anything else? Am I tired? Am I yawning? Do I have a little bit of a headache? Do I have a really strong craving for something else? Do I feel satisfied? Do I feel bloated? Do you feel, some sort of stomach upset? A food journal is an incredible tool. You could go take a food allergy test and see if something comes up on the test. ALCAT, Everlywell, there's all kinds of different tests out there, and some you can just get yourself. You don't even have to go to a doctor anymore, like Everlywell, and see if a food comes up in it or multiple foods. Now, the one thing about this is, and I said this before, about allergies involving your immune system, if you merely have like a sensitivity to a food, or a food just is not working in your digestion, it might not come up on an allergy test. Allergy tests are testing for IgG and IgE, and it's okay if you've never seen those letters before. They have to do with the antibodies that will show up in your blood if you're having an immune response to something. So if you're not having an immune response, then they might not show up on these tests. But for some people, these are incredibly effective. They've been incredibly effective for me. So this is an area that you could go and look at. Another thing to think about how to figure this out is, think back in your history, in your health history. Was there a significant event in your life where you got really sick? A hospitalization, a really intense flu, a surgery where there were a lot of medications, either antibiotics or painkillers. Most likely, if this is part of your health history, your digestion is having a hard time. And you could even think back in this history of how did you feel before that health event? And this could even be 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Just think back. And actually, it would be super interesting to do a whole life timeline. And that's something I do with my clients. We do a whole health life timeline, and we go from birth to where you are now and kind of look at the major events that have happened in your life. Events meaning like something that affect your health in some way, and how you felt before and after, and kind of pinpoint where things went wrong for you, where maybe your digestion started to have trouble. So if you have one of these, it's very likely that maybe you felt okay before and started feeling not so great after. And if not, that's okay too, but sometimes this might be what's happening for people. Look back at your family. Are there family members that are lactose intolerant? That's the most easiest one. Or someone with celiac disease. Celiac disease is where people can't digest gluten, and it's actually doing damage to their small intestine. Does anyone else in your family have digestive related issues like IBS and other things like that? It's very possible that you do as well, especially if it's a parent. Now, if that parent had one of these major like health events that I mentioned in the bullet before, then maybe that's not a good sign of this, but it's very possible. Like I've got lots of cousins and aunts who are lactose intolerant. So it stands to reason that I am as well. Now, for me, it's not just lactose, it's anything with dairy does not work for me. And I'm very clear about that. So does anyone else in your life have some digestive issues? Another way to find out if food is indeed causing your symptoms or making your symptoms worse is to try an elimination diet. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute here. So sometimes it's hard to pinpoint what the food is. And this is May. I'm going to tell you May's story. May is one of my clients, and I cook for her and her family. And when I first met her and the two kids and her husband, she already knew that she was gluten and dairy free. She had been just not feeling well for a long time. And she went to doctors and got a bunch of tests. And a lot of it was kind of trial and error that she realized, ooh, like when I eat gluten, I don't feel good. When I eat dairy, I really don't feel good. And so when I met her, we decided that everything I made for her and the family would be gluten and dairy free. And she was pretty sure one of the kids also definitely had something, issue with dairy. He would actually say his stomach hurt, like he got stomach aches. And so she had a feeling it was dairy because of her own issues. That was easy for her to kind of pinpoint it in her son. But I was with them for quite a few months, and something still wasn't right. She's still like, I'd ask her, how are you feeling? How's everything going? Just something still not right. And then over Christmas, her husband did a food challenge at work with all of his coworkers where they all did the Whole30. The Whole30 is a paleo-based diet. It's a really great diet if you want to go and look for some resources for how to do something that's a bit of a cleanse. It kind of gets out all the major kind of allergens and junk foods. He decided to do this diet with his coworkers. I said, great, no problem. We'll cook all Whole30 based recipes. And so she started following it at home too. And by the very next week, I talked to her and she said, oh my gosh, I feel amazing. I had no idea. It was soy. The whole time, her problem was with soy. But it wasn't until we did this extra step that she figured it out, because she's part Asian and she loves soy-based meals. Like that was definitely a go-to for her, especially, and she's lived in Asian countries. And so a lot of her meals have soy in it. And so she never considered that soy was her problem until we did this kind of elimination style diet just on a whim. And now she feels amazing. So we've cut all the soy out of her diet. Okay, so I am going to stop here for a second and come on and see if we have any questions so far. So basically, where we've talked about so far is all of how do you know if how you're feeling is about a food allergy or a food sensitivity. And then I'm going to go into the next part of, okay, if it is, what do you do about it? So first, I'm going to stop here, see if we have any questions, and answer a few of those before I move on. Okay, so one question I have is, if I have a food allergy or sensitivity and I want to, give it a try, giving it up, do I have to give up the food forever? And that's a big one. Yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's a big one. I have definitely seen this one. People, when they find out that I have, I'm gluten-free and dairy-free, if I'm at a party and I bring some special food so that I know I can eat, or other people I know at the party are also gluten or dairy-free, and other people go, oh, I think I have a problem with gluten too, but I'm too scared. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to know. It's too hard. So do you have to give up that food forever? The answer is, I'm not sure. And we don't really know until you give it a try. So if you already suspect, okay, I think there's some foods that don't make me feel so great, and I'm going to go ahead and give a try giving them up for a while and seeing how I feel. Does that mean you can never go back to gluten and never go back to dairy? Well, one thing you can do, and I'm going to talk about the elimination diet, is you give it up for a little while, see how you feel, see if your symptoms go down, see what changes. And I would recommend at least 21 to 30 days to do that. And then you try that food again and see if you feel okay when you eat it. That's the most immediate thing to figure out. The other one is that it could be that you just need to stay off it for a little while. So I've mentioned a couple times that it could be your digestion that's just off. Your digestion, as we get older, it's very natural for our acid, the acid in our stomach that does all our digesting for us, to get weaker, for us to have less, especially if we've had a lifetime of painkillers, aspirin, Tylenol, all those things, and antibiotics. All of those are definitely challenges to our digestive fire. We need lots of stomach acid to digest our food. So it could be, excuse me, it could be that if you go on a little bit of a healing diet for, say, a couple months, say you pick 90 days, like 3 months, 6 months, it could be that you give your stomach a rest and it strengthens, especially if you put in some more strengthening foods, some more, get rid of all the junk and the sugar and all the other stuff, which I know you don't even want me to list all the foods right now, especially processed foods. And you give your stomach a break, and then you add in more healing foods. Your stomach, your digestion might strengthen, and then you might be able to be fine having some gluten or dairy, as long as you don't go back to it every single day. That's all stuff that you can absolutely find out yourself by being observant and paying attention to how you feel. I know for me, I don't feel good anytime I have gluten. It's now been, I'm going to try and count the years. It's been almost 20 years that I've been off gluten. And I test it every once in a while. I don't test it anymore. It's been long enough that I just don't even bother. And it never works for me anymore. But there are other foods that I can have every once in a while and be okay. So really, the answer to that, it depends. And it'll take a little bit of curiosity and time on your part to see if, number one, aren't you interested to find out if giving up that food for a while helps you feel better? number one, wouldn't that be amazing if you feel better? And then worry about the, can you have it again later? Just number one, get curious about whether just that first step will improve your health, because wouldn't that be amazing? All right, another question I have is, I've tried giving up gluten or eggs and nothing changed. I didn't notice anything, but I still have some health challenges. Like there's still some things that I know I don't feel good, but changing those foods didn't change anything. So maybe I don't have a problem with gluten or eggs. Like maybe there's nothing wrong and something else is the cause. So I would question that of, are you sure nothing changed? And did you do it for long enough? And is it possible that there's another food in there along with those? Like if you really think it's gluten and you give it up for a week and then you notice nothing changes, and so you go back to it and then you're frustrated because nothing changed, maybe it's gluten and something else. Or maybe something else was happening during that time that just giving up the gluten for a week wasn't enough of a change for things to get better. And also a week isn't long enough. Okay. And another question I had here from someone is, can a food allergy cause constipation? So my question to that would be, is constipation the way you usually are? Or does it, like you're fine, like you have regular bowel movements, everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you're constipated for a few days or however long? Or are you always constipated? So I have a few more follow-up questions to that, but the answer is yes, it absolutely can, if that's what your response is. And I would have other questions of, are you also taking medications? Like there's so many other things that could happen. But if you're feeling constipated, if someone's dealing with that, that is not a good feeling at all. And that also means that just things aren't moving well in your body. Things aren't moving through and getting out. Things should come in and go right out. So I'm concerned that there's going to be a lot of other things that are going wrong in your system. And constipation, I'll tell you, number one, is either from medications. It can absolutely be from medications. But let's say there's no medications in the scenario here, then it absolutely can be from bad digestion. Something's going on with your digestion. So I would absolutely take a look at that. Okay, so I'm going to look here real quick. I don't see any other questions. So I am going to go back to our next spot. Let's go into, so I know there's some foods that don't work for me anymore. Where do I start? Yeah. Here are some strategies. So one, you can avoid the food. That's actually one of the strongest ones, is to avoid the food. I would just ask of, do you know which food it is and how long are you going to do it for? So if there's a food that doesn't work for you, or you suspect, maybe you've done a food allergy test, or maybe you want to jump in and do what I would recommend, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, is take out a bunch of foods at once and then see how you feel. So you want to do it for a certain amount of time, and you want to make sure that you hit a lot of the common allergens. So first strategy is avoid that food and see what changes. You could take a test. So I mentioned the food allergy tests. An ALCAT test is a great one. Everlywell is another one that you can just pick up yourself and do yourself. The Everlywell only tests 96 foods. So it's actually, there's a lot of other ones I would recommend that go into the 200 and 300 different foods. And so, like I said before, you're not always going to get all of the answers from here, but it could be a great place to start. It could give you some answers to see what's happening. And then do some research. Get to know the item you need to avoid, the other names for that ingredient, what it's found in. Get really interested and good at reading labels. So if you have an idea of the food, like you already have an idea of what it is, you already have a suspicion of the ones that you want to avoid, start your research, start getting interested in labels, start reading, because you could say, all right, I'm going to give up all dairy, and then you just stop eating ice cream and milk, but then you're still eating your granola bar every day for a snack. Well, if you read the label, you might see that there's actually whey or something else in there. Or salami. Things like salami have a lactose starter. It has to do with the curing of the meat. So there's actually dairy in salami. So get curious and get to reading those labels. You can also try replacements, restocking. You could try reducing the amount of a certain food you're eating and try, instead of regular creamer in your coffee, try a nut milk, try a soy, try a coconut. These are little things that you can try to see if some of your symptoms lessen. If the way you're feeling is a little more serious than that, like if there's something, some bigger issues you want to solve, these little tiny things might not be enough, but they're absolutely worth trying. And strengthening your digestion. If you're having issues with foods, especially the gas and the bloating, things like that, your digestion isn't working well. So work on strengthening your digestion by introducing supporting foods, things like sauerkraut and kimchi, things that are fermented, and bone broth, things like that, and eliminating the stressor foods like soda and coffee and chocolate, things like that. Right? So those are some strategies. I'm also going to talk to you about, so I mentioned the elimination diet. What is an elimination diet? If you want to go a little more drastic and organized and really get into, do you have a food allergy? Which food is it, or sensitivity? Let's hope no one has a food allergy, and it's just we all have sensitivities, and it just doesn't work very well for us. And then we can strengthen our digestions and go right back to those foods again. That's what I wish for all of us. So what is an elimination diet? So I'm going to tell you about, here's the actual protocol that I would recommend if you want to once and for all know how you're doing with certain foods. So the basic protocol is you avoid all the major food allergens for a minimum of 21 days. I prefer 30 days. And this is things like gluten, dairy, soy, peanuts, shellfish, and then you also add things like coffee, alcohol. You just get all of those stressors out of your diet, and you give your body a rest. This period of time allows your body to reset, to rest, to hopefully these symptoms, whatever it is you're experiencing, start to die down and lessen. That rash on your hand, I say rash because that's something that I deal with all the time, is I get this little rash that pops up on my hand sometimes when I've had too much sugar. Or some other foods too. So these things, or I've gotten headaches, or like sometimes just when you're getting up out of a chair, and I know just as we get older, and you go to get off the couch or get out of the car, it's like, it felt like a little harder than it used to. Oh, that's just us getting old. But is it? It's common, but it doesn't have to be normal. It doesn't have to be that way. And I know there's a difference in how I eat and how I'm doing, that sometimes when it's like hard to get off the couch or get out of a low car, and other times it's not. So I know when there's more inflammation going on in my body, and I can usually tie it to food. So then once you've allowed the body to reset, you reintroduce one food at a time. And this is really the gem of it, the juicy meat of this protocol, is you take one food at a time, because you're singling them all out. Remember May didn't realize it was soy until she got rid of everything and then tried something with soy sauce and went, oh my God, like without soy, I feel amazing. So sometimes you don't know. So you introduce one food at a time, and then you watch for symptoms. You see how you feel. You see if something comes back, and it can be an incredible process. I'm actually starting the process myself right now. I've had these little headaches that are coming back, and I can't quite pinpoint what it is. Is it the fact that I'm drinking too much coffee. I've gone for years not drinking coffee, and it slowly kind of has crept back into my life lately. And so is it the coffee, or is it the brand of coffee? Is it something else? Is it what I ate last night? So I'm interested to find out what these headaches are. And I'm also feeling a little more tired than I used to. What's going on with that? So this elimination diet protocol is a tool that I have. It's at my ready. I don't have to go to a doctor. It's my tool to figure out what's going on with my health. And that's why I love it so much, and I want to share it with you. So this is the course that I've just created, and it's available right now. And this course will take you through all of the steps. This is my course. It's all online, How to Survive an Elimination Diet. And in it, you get strategies for successfully completing and thriving, doing well, actually enjoying it through all the different phases. So in this course, I have all the key steps to take before you start the diet. That includes defining your why. What do you want to get out of the process? You're here in this course or in this class with me right now because something doesn't feel good. Either you already know there's something in your diet that's not making you feel good, or you are wondering there's something going on with your health that you want some answers to. So why you want to go through this process is really important. What is it that you want? Do you want to feel how you felt 10 years ago? Do you want to be able to run after the kids? Do you want to go run a 10K? Do you want to cross the Grand Canyon? Do you just want to get up in the morning and feel good again and not feel tired all the time? Why? What do you want out of this? And a really great piece of this is the practical preparation. My experience is that people get told, okay, change your diet. Like me, I was told to change my diet all the time and nothing ever worked. And so people get told to do elimination diets by their doctors, their health practitioners. Maybe one of you has already been told to do this. And then you tried and you just get frustrated and you don't know what to do because that doctor's not at home with you to help you through the steps. That's what I created this course for. I'm going to show you step by step how to go through your pantry, how to read the label of everything that you have to know what's safe for you to eat. And then I give you a step-by-step process for how to go through the elimination phase and also how to go through that reintroduction phase where you bring in one food at a time. And because I'm a chef, you guys know, like I've been cooking for people for over 12 years, you're going to get cooking tips and recipe resources, lots of resources for where to go to get the recipes of food that you can eat during all this time. And if it's only for this period of time that you give up these foods and then you go back to some of them at the end, great. Or if you find, ooh, I found a food that when I eat it, I don't feel good, all those recipe resources are right there for you to then use for as long as you need them. Some of the handouts inside this course, I've created a comprehensive workbook for you so that you don't have to go back to the videos after you're done with them. The videos are less than an hour to go through. They're about 46, 47 minutes to go through all of them. And you can go through one at a time. You don't have to do it all at once. But then I've got a workbook for you to go through and follow through all of these steps, including that discovering. And then I have all these other handouts, like including the Discovering Your Why worksheet. I've got that step-by-step guide for how to go through your pantry. I've included food allergy lists. So what are all those names for gluten and corn and dairy? Like what are those other names that they could be called on the labels so that you know exactly what you're looking for? And then I think this is my best one, the ingredient swaps. What to swap out for the common allergens. You might be avoiding giving up eggs or giving up dairy because you don't know what to replace it with. Or like corn, if you're going to give up corn, maybe you don't know how to thicken your sauces and your gravies because you always use cornstarch. I'm going to give you what to use instead. This course is the only one of its kind because it's designed to be a support for you as you go through the phases. I'm the queen of implementation. That is what I'm good at. I'm great at cooking for you, but I'm also great at helping you actually implement the changes that are going to make a change. They're going to make a great difference in how you feel. Most doctors and health practitioners give you a set of instructions and they send you home and that's it. So people go home confused and overwhelmed and they never try it and give up. And that's not the point of this. So this course is normally $147. Today, actually, for the next week, I'm running a promotional of $97. So for $97, you immediately get all the content to work at your own pace. You're going to get all the worksheets, the planning guides, the recipe resources, everything that I've included, all the ingredient swaps, and even suggestions for what to drink instead of coffee. But then I've also included some bonuses. If you purchase the course, this is going to run through October 30th. If you purchase the course, you're also going to get 2 live calls. So something like this, but we're going to be live together. You're going to be able to come with your questions. I'm going to schedule these over the next few weeks, and I'll make one in the morning, I'll make one in the evening, and I'll make one over a weekend. So you can come with your questions, because you're going to start my course. You're going to start thinking about how you feel and the foods that might not be working for you, and you're going to have questions. And I want to be there to support you, whether it's, what do I do for dinner? Or this is what I usually make when my family comes over. What do I do? Or I'm going to a party. Like all those questions, I'm going to do 2 group calls in November to answer your questions. And then I totally realize we're about to go into Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm going to do a group-led elimination diet following all these steps in January. We're going to start in January. So if you purchase the course now, you get a free membership into that course in January. I'm going to raise the prices, and it's going to be extra when I launch this course again. The course is going to close October 30th. I'm going to open it back up in January, and you're going to be in that group-led course so that we can all do a sugar detox together. I'm going to support you after whatever happens over Christmas and Thanksgiving, and you're going to be in that group. Also, if you don't already know this about what I've been up to, I'm creating an entire line of courses about how to cook allergy-free. The first course that's almost done is the art of gluten-free cooking. The next one I'm in the middle of developing is dairy-free cooking. I'm also working on a number of other diets as well. Paleo, AIP, I'm going to go through a lot of healing diets. So if you come back and want to purchase another course, this course's price will go towards that future course. So you're going to be part of my community once you join in. And anytime I update a course, you're going to automatically get the update. So if I write a new handout, if I improve something, change something, you're going to automatically get all of that. Okay, so to sign up for the course, here's the address, although I know you can't click on that. So we're going to paste that into the chat. So that chat, we're going to put the link right there. So you've got the link if you want to go check out the course. I'm going to go look at Q&A again, just make sure I don't see any new questions. So if anybody does have a question and wants to chime in right now, please let me know. I will answer them right now. Or if you think of something later, I can absolutely follow up with email. Like I said, if you want to listen to this again, and all for the people that weren't here live, I'm going to send out the recording. Thank you so much for spending these 43 minutes with me. I went a little longer than I thought, but I really do hope that this was great content for you, that you've got some ideas of what to do next. Like I said, we were answering the question of, do I have a food allergy and what do I do next? I hope I've answered all those questions for you. Or if you're still not sure, you've got some places to start. You've got some ideas, you've got some things to start paying attention to. You're going to pay attention to how you feel after you eat. You're going to start thinking about each meal. What is it? Maybe even change things up a little bit, like, oh, I always eat burritos with a flour tortilla. Maybe I'm going to try a taco and see if, not having the flour tortilla makes a difference. Or I always eat eggs for breakfast and I don't feel good, or I'm tired before lunch, try something else for breakfast. Like, just get creative. Your health is worth it. How you feel is worth it. And take it from me, I know it doesn't always sound easy, but right now, as I'm going through like tweaking my diet a little bit, the minute I feel better, it was worth that effort. So thank you again for joining me. And I'm going to go ahead. I don't see any questions. You've got the link here in the chat. I'll send it out via email as well. Thank you for joining me, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and end now. So thank you. Have a great day.